Welcome to the East County Sports Report. I'm Ramon Scott, and I'm joined by my partner at EastCountySports.com, Dave Dickens. Dave, it's week 5 of the high school football season, and well, if you thought last week's game was big, how about this week? We're going to be right back at it with number 1 and number 2 going at it. Plus, we've got a matchup of undefeated teams to talk about. We'll get to that in just a moment. But Dave, first and foremost, it's a recap of last week, but it's a preview of this week. Number 1, Helix. Number 2, Saints. The Highlanders stunned, nationally ranked Cathedral Catholic 45-27 in a highly anticipated rematch at Benton Hart Stadium last Friday night. El Elyon Noah had 116 yards and moved into second on the all-time East County rushing list. Right now, he's behind Jamon McClendon as the second all-time leading rusher. He passed Lawrence Walker, or the former Christian High running back. But you know what? Last Friday night, Dave, it was Cameron Brown and Delshawn Traylor that made the big plays to help the Highlanders stun Cathedral Catholic. Brown was 13 of 17 for 164 yards, including a 30-yard touchdown to sophomore Christian Washington, who burst onto the scene, and he also threw a 44-yard touchdown to Noah. Washington also had a 93-yard kickoff return to swing the momentum back in the Highlanders' side, and Traylor had a 62-yard touchdown run to start off the game. Helix rushed out to kind of a commanding lead. Cathedral Catholic came back. Helix won the game. They had it in their hands late, and they did the job. And now this week, what happens next, Dave? They're going to be playing at Mesa College Friday night against number 2, St. Augustine. Somehow Cathedral fell to number 3, but anyway, it's a marquee matchup everyone's talking about, and we can't ignore it. We got to lead off with it.
Absolutely. And in fact, to all our viewers that didn't get a chance to see it last night, we had our new friend over there. I don't know if he's QB1 or QB2 or what they refer to him as, but we'll just say Mr. Brown, Cameron, if you will. Just some amazing, just how the whole scheme worked out for Helix and how well prepared they were, and how I think impressive just the way Cameron brought it to our attention, the way they practice in full pads, and he mentioned it to the PPR as well. It was a whole new experience, really. And with the new man on the scene, you mentioned also the receiver Washington from Helix, and they already had so many weapons before, but now with both of them being so active at the quarterback position, talking about Delshawn Traylor and also talking about Cameron Brown, it's more than a 1-2 punch. It's almost a way of life for the Highlanders now. And I think that, with Saints, I think it's a little bit of a carbon copy of last year. I mean, really, where they're ranked right now and how they're looking this season as well. And being number 2 next to Helix, it's kind of a replay of last year's state title game.
Well, Dave, last year the Highlanders beat the Saints in La Mesa 25-14 during the regular season, but of course lost to the Saints in the championship game 21-20. Helix, that failed missed 2-point conversion where they bobbled the snap and the game was over. And really, it's kind of led to Coach Robbie Owens giving him a rallying cry for this week, 48.5 inches, because that's how far it is. That's how many yards you need to convert that 2-point conversion. So really, they just want to get over the hump against Saints. But, if you look at the way football is played and emotions come into it, the Highlanders are going to have to refute a letdown here, if you will. They're coming off one of the biggest regular season wins in, frankly, program history. And you're talking about one of the most storied programs in the entire county. But it didn't get much bigger, really, as far as regular season wins go than it did last week. And, I've been watching this program for over 35 years. So that was just a monumental performance. No matter what team you're talking about, Dave, at what level, when you get a victory like that, and Helix, they've been subjected to this before in a letdown situation. So that's where they've got to stay focused this week and stick to the task at hand at Mesa College in another one of the, I've coined it the gauntlet series between Cathedral, Saints, and Helix, the top three teams, maybe annually now in the county. Still, interestingly, the upset last week by the Highlanders that failed to jostle the Dons from the top of the computer power rankings. Get this, Dave. The computer rankings still have it Cathedral, followed by Saints, followed by Helix. And if you look at the state rankings, which kind of ranks those power rankings, Cathedral is still fourth in the state. Saints are 15th in the state, and the Highlanders are 25th in the state. So Helix would suggest that maybe they're an underdog in this game.
Yeah, I think that's what Coach Owens and the rest of the Highlanders come to expect. Though I think the way they set their schedule up, as a matter of fact, ahead of time, I think they don't mind being the underdog, and it takes the pressure off a little bit going into these top seeded games like this. I think all in all. And was it not? I want to. Usually, you're better at the stats than I am, but I want to step in on this one. And you said 48. I believe, was it 52 inches?
Maybe it's 52 inches. Whatever the case may be, Helix ended up about 72 inches away from the goal line by the time they covered the ball. The Saints were already doing belly slides in the opposite end zone, celebrating their Division I championship. So I got to pin you down. We're going to take a stab at this game. And I think, if anything, the way I kind of portray the Highlanders sometimes is performing better when they're in that rare underdog road. Them being on the road and these teams being closely rated. And like I said, you look at the power rankings, and maybe, just maybe, Cathedral is the team that, is kind of ranked ahead of Helix here. So I've got Helix winning this one, Dave, by a point.
Yeah, I'm going to probably stick with you on Helix pulling another one off, and they're not going to do the have the letdown that everybody's looking for this week. I think they're going to stay sharp, as Cameron would say and Coach Owens would say, and they're going to win this one by a field goal.
Okay, and I fixed the record there. I just had an error on our graphic. Helix is 2-1 and not 3-1, but still going to be a great game. The Saints got loads of talent at every position. Maybe even more experienced talent than the Highlanders, but I think some of the Highlanders' young talent and the way Brown is playing quarterback right now. Delshawn Traylor came out on Twitter this week and kind of politely asked, said, stop asking me about not playing as much quarterback for the Highlanders. But I don't think Delshawn should worry about that right now. I mean, he's got a Division I scholarship already wrapped up, and what he needs to do is focus on, doing whatever is asked of him, and his best will be enough, because that's how much talent he has and how much talent the Highlanders have. Obviously, this is the huge, huge regular season game of the season. And I think no matter what, I think both teams probably still headed to the Open Division, but there's a long way to go. We'll talk about all those Grossmont Hills League challenges now the Helix Highlanders are going to have in the weeks to come, including against the Steel Canyon Cougars, Dave, the Cougars, and junior running back Wesley Neely. He had 220 yards of total offense and a pair of touchdowns. Steel Canyon registered another shutout victory, 28-0 over Bonita Vista in their last performance. Steel Canyon's Vilyamu Ayu Morse had a couple of tackles for loss, while teammate Colton Guerrero had a team-high 5 tackles. Dave, Otay Ranch did spend a week at the bottom of the county top 10 a couple of weeks ago, but man, the Cougars defense right now, talk about those 3 teams, those elite teams in the county, but Steel Canyon might have the county's best defense.
And you mentioned that defense, and I want to pull out one of the key plays of that game last week against Bonita Vista, and that's Chance Johnson's big stop right there before the end zone at the end of that one. Preserving any scoring for Bonita Vista, I think that made a huge statement that you know this is that defense that, again, we'll touch on it again, that Coach Longerbone spoke very highly of, especially in the secondary. He was pretty particular on how physically they played, and how he was looking for them to make some key stops in not only the backfield, but in that secondary spot, safeties coming over the top, and corners playing pretty tight themselves as well. Uh, but again, you also mentioned their strong offensive points. Wesley Neely has been their go-to guy on the ground, but let's give the quarterback some props too, because he had a couple of nice throws too in this last one against Bonita.
Yeah, Jeremy Mendez-Galley was 8 of 16 for 141 yards and a touchdown. So, if indeed they've asked him to come in and be the quote-unquote game manager, he's kind of, you know what? Jeremy's exceeded expectations, I would say, so far this season. But again, it's all set up by that defense, Dave. They've only allowed 20 points this season. And, Neely said after the game that, we came with the passing and saw that the pass was kind of off, and we went with the run. But I just think Steel Canyon clicked on all cylinders, really, and just did the job. I mean, 28-0. That's a solid victory.
Yeah, it's funny too, because at the beginning of the season as well, you remember the conversation, I'm sure. Coach Longerbone is always he always speaks highly of his opponents and how his opponents are chosen, and he knows pretty much all of the coaching staffs pretty well, and how much respect that Coach Longerbone really shows to the opponent's players and their coaching staffs. I think that really says something about his character and his demeanor when it comes to coaching these Cougars, which, as you know, and I know, he filters down to the team as well, and pretty much demands the on-field respect too from his players, which is, I mean, I know we're talking sports and we're talking football, but let's just be honest. That's something that they also teach over there. That's going to be a teachable moment as far as just being an excellent young man in society. And I think that's something that some of these schools, we get too wrapped up in athletics, but I've definitely seen it as far as Coach Longerbone, his staff, and not to say that any of the other Grossmont Conference teams or any teams on the field don't have the same, but it's just something that I personally noticed, and just echoing what I saw and what I heard on that field consistently. And with that being said, Steel Canyon has traveled to Otay Ranch for quite a few years now. They have done well facing them, and just like any year, I'm definitely going to go with Steel Canyon, not only because they're undefeated, but I still do like them on the road, and just the way they're playing defense at the 2-2 mark for Otay. I just got to take Steel Canyon by at least a pair of touchdowns.
Yeah, the Mustangs, they did win in week 1 at home against San Marcos, who, was around the top 10, maybe just out of the top 10, but they definitely were at the time. That was an upset victory for Otay at home. They won that game 28-24, but consider this. If you consider Steel Canyon maybe just below that triumvirate of teams, Helix, Cathedral, and Saints, well, Otay Ranch lost to the Saints last week, 62-0. So I'm going with Steel Canyon by 2 touchdowns. Maybe it'll be just a touchdown, but I got Steel Canyon winning certainly in that one. All right, Dave, this is not a team from the Valley View Casino in San Diego coming down to play Grossmont. I believe this team is in the Moreno Valley, where our buddy Jay Williams is from. This is Valley View coming in to take on Grossmont, another home game for the Hillers, for the number 8 Hillers. And Dave, last week, Robert Tucker, he had that breakout performance that, I don't know, we've kind of been waiting for, but I think was expected that it would happen soon. Ended up with 6 touchdowns on the night. How about that? 276 yards on the ground, 116 yards receiving, and Grossmont clobbered Olympian 52-28. They actually trailed in the game 14-10 at halftime. Congratulations, Coach Tommy Carlo. Career victory number 100. If you add his wins up from over there at Mount Miguel and now over at Grossmont for all these years. Jamie Odom, 277 yards passing. He rushed for 93 yards. So a very, very nice day for Jamie. The Foothillers had 658 total yards. They keep racking up these pinball numbers, Dave. And this week, probably going to beat this Valley View team. We always worried about those section teams coming in, but this is not like that team that came in last year on short notice. The Hillers are expected to beat Valley View.
Yeah, a couple of things on this one. First and foremost, Grossmont's on game 4 of 7. Yes, count them, 7 home games scheduled on the docket this season. And, you know, really, you start with the offense. I think it was, Jamie Odom was talking about it. He just said that, he also amassed by the fourth quarter, while it was there, the beginning of the fourth quarter, I think he threw one pass and he just reached 5,000 passing yards for his 3 years as a Hiller. Quite impressive numbers, even though it's early yet, and we're not even played game 4 in the season. And I'm just going to go out there and say it. We'll be seeing him in the postseason too, for sure.
Well, yeah, they're Division One. They are in the postseason no matter what. But I know what you're saying. We'll be seeing some success in the postseason.
The resurgence of Robert Tucker from the backfield. Again, though, Jamie Odom and Tucker both agree. They give credit to their line for making those key holes and opening up those seams. And really, if you were there to watch even the second half, I arrived in the second half, and I'll tell you what, it was definitely the tale of two halves, considering they were down 14-10 at the halfway point and went on to score, I believe it was 36, 38 more points. So they definitely were firing on all cylinders. They were able to score at will, really. Not to say anything about that Olympian defense. However, we did think that it was going to be a lot closer and that their defense may be suspect. Well, they definitely exposed the weakness, especially in the secondary. It's pretty obvious. And then also the ground game was working great. But also, I wanted to mention leading tackler Christopher Alba. Phenomenal in this game. I think I heard his name in the second half at least more than a handful of times, and definitely seeing it too. Getting in there, getting to the quarterback, causing the pressure. The guy just is, I'm going to say hands down, is one of the best linebackers right now in the Grossmont Conference. And talking to Chase Carlo, he definitely, that he does his research, and he's definitely not being a homer. All the research shows too that Christopher Alba definitely is one of those premier linebackers in the league. And yeah, Grossmont really handled it last week. I think I agree with Chase. He was even saying it's a possibility of a running clock in the fourth quarter. I kind of tend to agree. I got this one, Grossmont, at least by 3 touchdowns or more.
Dave, you know why you heard Alba's name called so many times in the second half? He kind of was making like Jefferson in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, making every tackle. He finished the game with 21 tackles. So I don't know how many plays that Olympian ran, but Chris Alba probably made the stop in at least 40% of them, I'm thinking.
He was wreaking havoc, and definitely a premier tackler. Definitely knows how to wrap the fellas up when need be.
Dave, when did you get there? Did you see Tucker's 97-yard touchdown? And if so, describe it for me.
I'll tell you, he is just, once he finds that seam, and it was at type of play too. You knew when that last team opened up that he was gone. I mean, there was defenders, 2 or 3 of them trying to catch up to him. I think he was at least 6 or 7 steps ahead of them. I mean, if ever there was to create any flames on any turf or grass field, definitely were flames coming from Tucker's back foot. I mean, and he makes it look so easy. Uh, really, not really any special move to his footwork or his body. Just straight. Really, it looks like a downhill runner, but just finds those little seams, kind of like our friend Keenan Baker from Valhalla. But really, like I said, a resurgence of Tucker of probably before he got injured last season.
Well, and the thing is with Grossman, with that much production, I mean, it's just not 2 or 3 guys, right? I mean, in your story, you listed not only Tucker, but Brody Schicker. I guess Brody had an average game, 3 catches, 60 yards. I mean, still
Right.
total production from Brody, Devin Jackson, Chris Cherzan, and Max Cadwallader all doing a great job of producing yardage on offense. And yeah, I've got Grossmont winning this one. Oh man, I've got him by at least 3 or 4 touchdowns for sure. Okay, Dave, we got a big one. We got a big one here. Maybe we could have, we wouldn't be wrong to lead off the show with this game with a matchup of undefeateds. We're just kind of going in order of the ranked teams there, kind of just because Helix game was so big. But look at this one: Santana 4-0, Montgomery 4-0. These are the 2 top teams in the Division 4 power rankings. This is one of the biggest games in the county, really, because every championship is big in every division. And when are you going to get, other than number 1 Helix and number 2 Saints? Well, you've got number 1 Santana and number 2 Montgomery, technically, right? Nathan Temple, he passed for 284 yards last week, 4 touchdowns. Santana shut out Sweetwater 4-0. Randy Smith caught a pair of touchdown passes, of course, for the Sultans in the win. Dave, the Aztecs, they're coming off an upset of the Kearney Comets. Kearney's been talked about a lot as being one of these top teams in this division, and right now the Aztecs did a great job. They ran the ball well against Kearney. They averaged 8 yards per carry. They're averaging a couple sacks per game. This is going to be a very, very difficult assignment for Santana. No problem, really. No penalty. If they don't win, it might cost them a home game in the semifinals. It might not, because they still might be ranked number 2 if they were to lose. So just a big, big game, a nice game. I'm very, very interested to see what happens in this one.
Well, I tell you what, I think it's going to speak volumes about Santana's run defense if they can stop the ball on the ground. And we've talked about it with Temple and Hughes about their defense and some of those keys and some of those gentlemen that have stepped up to the plate. I don't think that really there's any worry as far as you got Mota on the ground, a little mixture of that and a little Temple and Hughes mixture, Temple and Jackson. I just don't see where you can really stop a top-tiered offense like that. They just have too many weapons, not only in the passing game, but on the ground as well. And not to mention, Nathan Temple is not too bad at having a little shiftiness himself. So really, I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's a tough assignment for the Montgomery Aztecs. Not so much a tough assignment for the Sultans. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to take the Sultans by 10.
All right, I like that prediction. A few more things that happened in the game. Donnie Kelly caught a 30-yard touchdown pass. You talked about Mutah, but Dean Landers caught an 8-yard touchdown pass, and Jared Forster, 6 receptions for 44 yards. Senior James Chaplin had an interception for the Sultans in the second half, and Drew Temple came in and threw a touchdown pass to Ethan Wright, a sophomore. That was late in the game as Nathan's brother got in there at quarterback, probably the quarterback next year. So, yeah, I've got the Sultans winning this one by a point. I think it's going to be very, very close, though. And, this might be a championship game preview. So I got Santana winning it by a point.
Temple and Associates.
Okay, Dave, two of our teams are going to match up in a really intriguing matchup. It was probably just as intriguing as last year's game. Valhalla at Mount Miguel. Valhalla is 2-1. Mount Miguel 1-2. Valhalla, they ran into a fellow upstart last week in the Hilltop Lancers, and Hilltop's been a terrific story this year. They kind of handled the business against the Norsemen. They beat them 27-13, handing them their first loss of the season. Maybe it really wasn't even that close. Hilltop kind of controlled the game throughout. We knew it would be a tough game for Valhalla. Keegan Baker had 130 yards and a touchdown for Valhalla in that one. Last season, the Matadors and Norsemen got together, and it was 25-13. Mount Miguel won that game, despite 154 yards passing from quarterback Luke Pillsbury. In that one. So they had a little bit more passing, and Pillsbury has looked a lot better. The Matadors are coming off a 35-20 road loss at Santa Fe Christian last week. They fell behind 28-0 after three quarters. That's when J.D. Laverdier and Jaheim Allen Pompey heated up, and they connected three times in a fourth quarter frenzy, but really never threatened the lead. Laverdier had 358 yards through the air in that game and surpassed 4,000 career passing yards. Allen Pompey had 10 receptions for 235 yards. So, Dave, issue the challenge to you to give us a preview of this game and then pick a winner, because I don't know if I can.
Well, I was going to just mention, I mean, let's also think about this. Valhalla losing to Hilltop again. I want to reiterate it that Hilltop could very well be the replacement this year for they're the new Eastlake, if you will, down in the South Bay. I think they are that good, that much talent. We'll just say they're the Eastlake of the last quite a few years. And then with Mount Miguel, I mean, I know they scored late and everything, but for them to even compete with Santa Fe Christian, I think that says a lot about their character and a lot about, and then just the quarterback receiver combo. It's really a prolific combo, as we have mentioned about them in the county. They're really a prolific combo for sure, and I think it's going to remain that way for the remainder of the season. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's some more records broken both at the receiving end and the quarterback position. However, I think that this could be one of those games too that maybe Mount Miguel, maybe they figure out a way on the ground to stop Mr. Baker, because the Baker man can.
I think that's the big question, whether they can slow down Baker. And it's a very interesting contrast of styles. I mean, Valhalla is going to keep it on the ground with Baker and Sanchez and that great offensive line that they have. And Mount Miguel, they're a freewheeling passing team. There's just no other way around it. And I think that makes for it's like oil and water. I mean, these two teams don't mix. So one team's going to grind it out on the ground, and one team's going to be out there passing. I just issued you this caution. I don't know if you made a prediction there. This is the third straight road game for Valhalla, and I don't care what level you're playing at. It doesn't involve getting on a plane. It's just still a very, very difficult thing to do, is win when you're playing the third game on the road. So I've got Mount Miguel winning this one by a point.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think really there's just quite a few factors in this one. Mount Miguel did beat them last year also. Not that these two teams have changed significantly.
They have.
Since last year.
Valhalla.
Not Mount Miguel so much. But I'm going to say probably the same thing, Mount Miguel, but I'm going to say maybe edging them out by a field goal.
Okay. If I'd have known that, I might have picked Valhalla, but that got me in trouble last week going opposite you just to go opposite. So I got to be careful when I do that. I don't think your dad would have ever done that. Okay.
No, and I won't say who, but there was a lot of questions um, after that Monte Vista Christian game. We'll just say that.
Well, we'll get our chance to talk about Christian right now, shall we? The Patriots, they distanced themselves from the Monte Vista Monarchs with an impressive 46-6 win over the Monarchs last Friday on the road. Senior running back Nate Stein rushed for 4 touchdowns, and junior quarterback Gabe Krug had 156 yards passing and a 65-yard touchdown run. Dave, Central is coming off a loss, which is rare for them, but it was to Gila Ridge of Yuma, in a non-sectional game. So the Spartans advanced to the Division III title game last season. They lost to the Morris Tigers. Morris Tigers beat the Christian Patriots, to get to that title game. So that's an interesting contrast right there. Whether or not this Christian team is improved over that team, I think that still remains to be seen. I think last week's victory gave them a lot of confidence. We talked to Todd Beezer this week about that. Beezer had 3 catches for 60 yards last week. Central's got a really, really good team, Dave. But I still like Christian to win this one. What say you?
You know what? That's pretty much what I was going to say is considering who Central has defeated this year so far, and then they're coming in at the 3-1 mark. However, on the other hand, Christian made a statement, I think, by not only beating Monte Vista, but like you said, really distancing themselves, and that's an understatement in that score, far from what we saw last year. And I think that was one of those non-league affairs that game, they were at a point that they had to win that game. That was a must-win game for them. And now facing, I think it's a much tougher task with this Central team coming off of some big wins over some big teams. And not to say that to discredit Christian, I think that some outstanding play, like you mentioned, and the Steins have always really done well in the East County, and especially Christian. But I'm looking for maybe Gabe Krug to open this one up. And, he does have so many weapons out there, but I think really his go-to guy, I think we're going to see a lot more of Todd Beezer. Just his size and stature, and the ability to be open for Gabe. I think that's going to be the go-to guy in some of those we need to score now situations.
Well, he's going to have to be. And remember what Todd told us. I also want to mention Christian Salacup. He had 2 touchdown catches, one of which was, as our stringer Thomas Ringer called it, an extraordinary diving catch in the end zone by Salacup. These guys are going to have to step up, Dave, because we got that unfortunate news that from Todd that the other wide receiver for the Patriots, Carson Stroman, had fractured his collarbone early in the game against Monte Vista. So, they did also get Jack St. Clair back. I think that's going to help them in that. We want to wish Carson, a speedy recovery and get back in time for the postseason. Fractured collarbone, certainly going to sideline him, several weeks, but it's still early enough that I think he should make it back for the playoffs.
Well, let's, if we run the timeline, it was almost about the same time that Santana's Nathan Temple, same injury last year, came back against the Braves for a tune-up, and from there, he was nothing but perfect, really.
Yeah.
So definitely, like you said, it's still early enough. He can come back and have that impact that he did last season and that he has thus far. But I think that just means our ground game is probably going to have there's going to be more of a balance there, hopefully. And like I said, look for Todd Beezer to make a lot of those key catches over the middle, or even some of those deep ones and I think Gabe is well capable of throwing those.
The power ratings might say Central's might even be expected to win this game on the road. But like I said, I'm not making that mistake again. I'm going with the Patriots. I got to go with the Patriots.
Yeah, I think I'm going to also take Dave. I'm going to go ahead and take your Patriots, Mr. Beezer, by 7.
Dave, a game that's caught your eye this week. It might be, locally, might be our game of the week for games that are actually played in the East County. I mean, Valhalla at Mount Miguel's two of our teams, but this is an extremely intriguing matchup with undefeated Vincent Memorial coming in to play the El Cajon Valley Braves. Vincent Memorial is pretty darn good. The Braves' 3-game winning streak was halted by Claremont last Friday as El Cajon Valley took a scoreless game into the fourth quarter before falling 13-7 to the host Chieftains. Senior Joe Malone had a 17-yard keeper for the only El Cajon Valley score, and that actually tied the game at the time. Interestingly, Dave, Mario Jacobs saw the majority of snaps for El Cajon Valley. Still, the Braves had trouble getting into the end zone, but they kept Claremont out of the end zone until the fourth quarter. Their first drive actually started late third quarter, and then they got in the end zone. So now the resurgent Braves will still call them a team on the upswing. There's no problem with that loss to Claremont. Claremont looks like they're okay despite their short numbers, and it's a competitive game, obviously, but now they're going to get a shot at the top-rated team in Division 5. The Braves have nothing to lose, Dave, in this one. They lose the game, it's disappointing. They're going to be upset. They want to win, but no problem if they don't. They're still going to be in fine position. Pull off an upset here, though, it's going to be big news again.
Yeah, and I think why not? Look for it on homecoming. You got homecoming. You're playing at home, and you're playing the number 1 team in Division 5. So what? We played. What did we do 2 weeks ago? We played the Islanders in our house. Took them to the house. Why can't we do it again? And now against number 1 Vincent Memorial. I think that it's very easily done. I think that this was really good for their character. That one in Claremont, we lose by 6 points. I think that we're good to go, and I think we can build on that one. I mean, let's just put it this way. They've been playing lights out defense pretty much the whole season. Some of the offense, I think that we've sputtered a couple of times when we're in the red zone, but I think the way that they've played at home, undefeated, I think that El Cajon definitely is going to have a homecoming indeed, and I'm going to pick them with the upset by a point over Vincent Memorial.
Yeah, Dave, the Braves had just 135 yards last week. Demarius Hyde led El Cajon Valley with 74 of those yards. He did have 120 all-purpose yards, but I'll mention some of those defensive players for the Braves so they get their just due. They did a great job. Mario Jacobs, 5 tackles, including 1 for loss. Derek Robinson had 5 tackles for the Braves. Also, good pass defending by Tiger Kuhn and Daniel Jacobs, the sophomore. So they defended a couple of passes. Great job by the Braves defense. This one is very, very difficult, Dave. I have Vincent Memorial winning this one in a very low-scoring game. I'm calling it 19-12 or so. So I guess I got Vincent Memorial by a touchdown. Okay, Dave. Well, those Monta Vista Monarchs, they're trying to turn it around a little bit. They're going to have to play Imperial, and that's not going to be easy, even though both these teams have a 1-3 record. The Monarchs, pardon me, looking to bounce back from that loss to the Patriots. And they certainly have their work cut out for them traveling to the IV. Isaiah Gardner had a touchdown for Monta Vista last week, but the Monarchs are going to be underdogs in this game, believe it or not. I think they can win. I think they kind of need to win. So what do you think, Monta Vista this week? How can they turn it around?
I think really they've been sputtering in the passing game, and I think that if we can add a little more balance to that pass, not giving the entire workload so much, or not the entire, but so much of the workload to our good friend Mr. Gardner, I think we mix it up. Maybe Silva can eke a couple of passing touchdowns in there for him, get him started, kind of start to balance that out. Uh, a little quiet on the defensive front last week. I'm looking for them to bounce back as well. Logan Schmidt, of course. Also, Sebastian Valdez. I look for those guys to really energize their defensive teammates, and maybe we can eke one out. I think it's a little tougher and tall order though, because we are going out to the desert area, so it is going to be probably some significant heat, maybe in the triple digits. I would expect it, and probably pretty sure, since we are so close to El Centro. With that being said, I'm hoping for the best for these Monarchs, but I'm going to go with Imperial by 3.
Yeah, Monta Vista getting some contributions to try to take the load off of Gardner. Xavier Leyva, Giovanni Olivas also carrying the ball. So definitely got to see a turnaround here. I don't think it's out of the question that the Monarchs can win. Imperial actually is kind of a considerable favorite. If you look at the computers, I think it'll be much closer than that. And I've got Imperial by less than a touchdown, but I still have Imperial winning. Dave, don't know if you saw last week at the Monta Vista game, Jamon McClendon showed up to root on the Monarchs in that one, and didn't quite work out for the Monarchs on that night. Okay, Dave, Mountain Empire is going to take on Coronado, and we know about these Islanders. Mountain Empire right now 1-3, so I think there are some concerns, especially coming all the way out to play this Coronado team. I think Coronado is a little bit better than this 2-2 record indicates. I don't know if I want to say better than the 2-2 record indicates, but I just think that Coronado with Coach Hines, I still respect this program right now, and I think this is going to be a tough assignment for Mountain Empire. We didn't hear much from the Red Hawks this week. Maybe you can fill me in on how they did. We know that they did fall in the game to Mission Bay. Probably thought it would be closer, 55-29. So it was only 3-0 at the end of the first quarter. Jericho Brennan had a long run early. Jaleel Whitehead also threw a 52-yard pass, and Mountain Empire led the game, Dave, 16-7 at halftime. But Mission Bay returned the opening kickoff in the second half. They recorded a pair of interceptions in the third quarter, and by the fourth quarter, it was 41-16 Mission Bay.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to talk to Coach Van's son. Gosh darn it, Rico. Anyway, I didn't get Nico. I'm sorry, Nico. I didn't hear from him, but he did say a few words. I think he did mention that the score really didn't tell the story. That it was really much closer than the final score. That's really all I got out of him. I think it was just a real late night for them. But as far as I've seen from the Red Hawks this season, and then seeing Coronado, I actually am going to go out on a limb and say I think it's going to be pretty close. I mean, I will give the advantage to Coronado because they're playing at home, and Mountain Empire has to travel so far out to the coastal area. So with that being said, I give the edge to Coronado. But I also think that Mountain Empire, it's one of those must-win situations also to, I don't want to say salvage the season, but we really need to, this would be a big boost going into league. So I'm going to say Mountain Empire by 2 for the upset.
Dave, I'll just mention Whitehead. I mean, you brother, you have an uncanny knack of uncovering these players and putting them. Granted, we have a lot of players that we get on this show that are already established, top players that come on because they've made big games and win the Athlete of the Week. But over the years, you've had players on that have been under the radar, and they only seem to get better. And Whitehead had a 50-yard interception return for a touchdown last week. He also threw another touchdown pass later in the game after the one we mentioned. So just a tough game this week. I've got Coronado at least by a couple of touchdowns. All right, Dave, and I'll just talk about the 8-man game this week. Foothills Christian is undefeated. The Knights outlasted the visiting Avalon Lancers from Santa Catalina Island, 40-36 at Sayal Field on Friday night. Tony Morose and Kevin Helfers combined for 436 yards of total offense. Morose passed for 2 touchdowns and ran for another, while Helfers rushed for 2 scores. Junior Jason Olivier had a 95-yard touchdown reception from Morose. Tanner Corey had an interception for the Knights. They are the top-rated 8-man squad. Foothills Christian has done very, very well against Borrego in this series of late, and the Rams are rated 5th in the 8-man division, so could be a tough game for Foothills Christian. They're probably expected to win, but Borrego always got a pretty good team. So, okay, Dave, well, that's going to do it for the East County Sports Report. You got any other comments, any other observations, or want to mention your sponsors? We got a few minutes if you want.
I just wanted to touch real quick. I saw on your earlier simulcast with Steve Dolan yesterday, and I just wanted to reiterate some of what you guys were really onto something, and I feel very strongly about what Steve was talking about as far as a realignment really being needed, and for I think that all due respect, Mr. Wilbur, I think that I definitely second the request from Mr. Steve Dolan that I think that would be a pretty good setup. He mentioned with Santana, Elkhorn Valley, and splitting it up, and a possibility of adding Christian to the mix too. I think. What do you think?
No, I don't think it'll happen. I don't ever see Christian rejoining this conference. That 1-year experiment, man, I want to say it was, I don't know if it was 30 years ago or 25 years ago. It only was I think it was just for 1 season. My memory's not as good as it used to be, I'm afraid, brother, but I don't see it. I don't see it happening, and I don't know how you're going to get 3 leagues out of that. I think that Valhalla and El Cap should both be in the Valley League right now, but the Hills League cannot play a 4. There are some leagues that play a 4-team circuit with 3 league games, but it's just so hard because those other bigger leagues. So it's harder to go get the non-league games. So I don't know if it's been, El Cap stepping in and volunteering to stay. I mean, from my understanding from what Brian said is that I believe Valhalla is the team to go back into the Valley next year for a 5-6 split now, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that's going to be set for 2 years. That may go into effect next year. Hopefully El Cap is just on a little bit of a downturn right now. Program-wise, it doesn't seem like they're competing at this point with those other teams, but we're just a few years removed, handful of years removed from that incredible run, and the talent that they can accumulate in a short time in Lakeside has proven success, or at least proven to be competitive in the Grossmont Conference. So I just hope that El Cap continues to develop and improve to keep up with them, because it's going to be hard the way these other programs are going right now in the Grossmont Hills League. It's a little bit discouraging. So I think that's where the concerns lie. And then we want to reduce the variance a little bit for the Braves as well, because they're a little bit undermatched against some of those other teams in the Valley League. But, other than leaving the Grossmont Conference for football, I mean, they'd never leave the conference. I mean, you could switch leagues for one sport, I guess, but there's a lot of history here that I think we just don't want to mess with. I'd say I have no say in this, but the Grossmont Conference is steeped in tradition. Really, I don't know. I think it's tradition your dad made. So I don't know. It is a bit of a conundrum, but I do think, let me just add this. I do think that this resurgence of the Braves I think they got a great coaching staff, and I think he's done a great job. And they're able to play these competitive games and just stay on par with these other teams in their league, fight through the league games. They play good in these non-league games. Everything's going to be okay when it comes to the playoffs. I mean, right now they're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to play some competitive games. They may even get, through the quarterfinals and the semifinals with this quality team, as long as everybody stays out healthy on the field and this team continues to play. But I also think that we may see a bit of a resurgence. I mean, we're already seeing the El Cajon Valley programs in other sports become very competitive. Championship quality teams in soccer, in tennis, and I think that comes with some of the
Basketball.
basketball. We've seen some success, so I think that comes with the change in some of the social area in hardscrabble El Cajon. So I think that the discipline of families and structured lives are going to allow the Braves to continue to be competitive in sports. And I think that some of the people some of the youth of El Cajon that may not have discovered football because of their own uh, cultural backgrounds, but I think in the future, more will discover football and enjoy football. Despite what we talk about the dwindling numbers, there's still something about the magic of Friday night. And as long as there's football teams, kids are going to learn to play and put on those pads. And I just think that maybe some of the culture of the areas kept the numbers down on the football team, and I think that will change.
No, I think so too, and I mean, there's a resurgence. I think for a while of a couple of teams, not only the Braves, but where we've seen it at times at Santana. But I think Santana really is going to be starting to. I think they're going to be very competitive for the next several years as well. Um, but it's just good to see these smaller schools like that compete. We saw it last year in Mountain Empire with them winning their league finally after quite a hiatus. So um, just always good to see the smaller guys. The old David and Goliath theory. I mean that we love our Helix and Grossmont and Granite Hills and Steel. Um, it's also good to see those teams in the valley though that haven't been at the top for quite a while, and to see them playing competitive, like you mentioned, the Braves, is really something special. And talking to a lot of our local coaches too, that don't even play in the Valley. Even some of these coaches in the Hills are really impressed with the success of that coaching staff too, and they all wish them well. So really, I think we really have one of uh, the Grossmont Conference overall. I think we got some of the not only some of the best players in the county, but I think we have some of the best coaching staffs in the county as well.
Well, just look at, we're talking about the big game this week with Helix and Saints, but really the next two best games as far as the teams on the East County schedule are concerned, Santana and Montgomery, Vincent Memorial, and El Cajon Valley are the premier matchups beyond that as far as, competitiveness and how their records stand and the excitement of the games. So they're all great games this week. Short schedule, got some teams on a bye this week, but man, it's going to start to get hot and heavy next week. We start to get into some league play too. Our teams will start playing each other, and we'll have a lot of interesting things to say. So, all right, Dave, sponsors, you want to throw them out there? Can you remember them all?
We're gonna go for it. We especially want to thank all their assistants and with our from our shirts to our patches recently that they've designed the Letterman patches. Our boys Matt Atkinson and Jacob over there at Retro Sports. They're not the the big Dick's Sporting Goods, but definitely check them out. They do great deals on quality embroidered uniforms. I know that they do most of Grossmont High School's uniforms, majority of their sports, but they just do a really great job out there. Great customer service. Let's not forget also our Santee local for many years, and all the great people. And you know, Rob Treadwell over there, he also he definitely helps out the youth from West Hills and Santana as well. He tends to help set up some part-time employment for a lot of those kids too, and really gives his personal touch over at Al's. Everybody knows to head on over to Al's Sports Shop for all those specialty items you need, or any of those practice pads that you need, or whatever you need, glove wise, bat wise. Al's usually got everything over there, and they do some great trophies for us every year for our East County All Star Game, basketball game, boys and girls. They've the last 2 years they've sponsored it with the great trophies and plaques that they supply to us. Also, they do a great job. Talk to Rob; he'll definitely take care of you. And then let's not forget our good friends in Alpine, AGC Construction, Frank Coit and his two sons, Josh and Johnny. They do a great job. Nice, great local company. We also thank our two eateries, Macarerios, over there yeah, off of Second Street. Best pizza in town. Go in there and see Pat Villani. He also does great job for the kids out here, but also excellent food. Ron Berner's spot out there off of Navajo Road, Nicolosi's. A lot of great dishes over there, and I'll never stop talking about my favorite, and that's the Sicilian mac and cheese. And also our good friend Hoppy Hopgood out there at H12, always sponsoring up our baseball show, and he's just done really well with all our local talent too. A lot of from the youth to the high school and college kids, really doing a great job, and especially that Hit Tracks technology. If you haven't checked him out yet, definitely go check him out. New Santee location out there, and a little more room for him out there, and definitely go see him though. He's a true professional. And for Ramon Scott, I'm Dave Dickens, and that's the East County Sports Report for Week 5.
Thank you for joining us.